Hey friends, welcome to Happily Even After. I have just decided to record this because there's been a lot that's happened in my family, my personal life this week, and just thought I would make more YouTubes. And I think this subject's important to talk about. And it's a little different than the topic I usually talk about, which is betrayal. But in a way, it feels like betrayal. And so I'm hoping I can share. Last Saturday, my son's best friend was murdered. And I don't say that word lightly or to be dramatic, but it's really what happened. And never in my life did I think I would know someone personally who had been in my home, who I loved like one of my own. And so I'm going to tell you the story about this. And I had been wanting to share this, but I just didn't even have the strength. And then a few days ago, Charlie Kirk was murdered in front of the masses, in front of many of us who watched it. I was taking a nap when it happened, but my kids saw and heard about it. I live in Utah and I knew people that were there. I knew their kids. A lot of my friends, their kids were there. 2 murders, one I knew personally and one I just knew of. And he seemed like an amazing person, had a family and kids. And so for me, I think this topic needs to be discussed. And as adults, as the parents of these children, they are young adults, but they are killing each other, and that is their way to solve problems. And I think we need to do better. I don't know what the answer is, but I just want to talk about it because I think if we have a discussion, sometimes just like betrayal, we think we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to let anyone know this is what we're thinking or feeling. If we talk about it, then that means it's real. But what I've learned this week is that murder can happen in very close to home, to my family. And I don't live in a place where that happens. I am not surrounded by people. This wasn't a gang event. This was a very, in my opinion, senseless murder. Just like with Charlie Kirk, senseless. He was more politicized, and I'm not going to get into politics or what I think or feel about that. I'm just going to share the story. Last Friday, my son and 4 friends had rented a house. They were going to move out, and some of them, it was going to be for their first time. My son had attempted, he went to UVU, where the shooting of Charlie Kirk happened last year, and just wasn't quite ready to go to school. And so this was their opportunity. They were moving out of my home. He was moving out of my home, and his friend Usman, they were best friends, and they were super excited to move out, and they were going to college, to a community college here in Utah. And my son was getting a job with Usman. They were just going to live their best lives. And so he came over to our house about 2:00. And if you know a little bit about my story, I've been divorced now for 3 years, and I don't really have a relationship with my former husband. Although we do have 4 kids, he was helping my son move out. He had rented a U-Haul, and sweet Usman said, "Hey, Jennifer, don't you worry, my former spouse, he doesn't have to come in. We'll carry all the heavy stuff out of your house, the couch, the mattress, the dresser, the shelving my son wanted to have carried out and moved into his new place. We're going to carry it out. Your former spouse, he'll be in charge of filling up the U-Haul. He'll stay outside." I was originally not going to be home, but I turned out to be home. And so him and several of my son's friends were loading up. And then they drove that U-Haul to Usman's house, and they loaded up his bedroom furniture and got all of his clothes and things. And then my former spouse took the U-Haul and stored it at his house because they weren't going to be able to move in until Saturday. And I don't know what happened. My kids, they were doing whatever they do on Friday night. Around 11:30 or so, my son, who likes to be very organized and planned, he wants to know every detail, what I'm doing and not doing, because he feels uncomfortable having his mom and dad together. So he came into my room and he's like, Mom, my girlfriend's coming over. We're going to load up all my computer stuff in her car, so it's going to be safe. And we had a little chat. How are you doing? Good. Okay, we're going to move around 10 o'clock. Great. If you're not up, I'll make sure you get up. Perfect. I asked him a few questions about his night and went to sleep. Well, Saturday morning, I heard my phone ding about 7:30 in the morning, and I got a random weird text from his dad saying, I don't know if Jensen's going to move out. I don't know if he's going to be able to go to school. This is going to change the rest of his life. It was cryptic. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just talked to him a few hours ago and he's, of course, moving out. I immediately jump out of my bed and run downstairs, and all the lights are on in my basement and my son is not in his bed. And I thought that was strange. I looked on to find out where he was, and I saw that he's at Usman's house. And I thought, hey, is everything okay? No. Is Usman okay? No. Mom, I'll talk to you later. I start panicking. I thought, what's going on? And my brain went, was there an accident? Did he commit suicide? I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's not him. None of those things that I was thinking made sense. And so I had to call my former spouse, which I avoid doing. I don't like to do that, but I was like, I have to get information. I don't know what's going on. So I call him, and he was like, Usman was murdered last night. And hearing those words, I still can't process it. I thought, what? Where? I lost it. Because the thing that my former spouse didn't know was how much Usman had become a part of our life since our divorce. He was over here all the time. Him and my son had grown really close. And he had the code to my house. I felt safe. He was a good kid and sweet and going places and worked hard and loved his family, loved his mom. I was just heartbroken, and I just couldn't imagine. I knew his mom was out of the country. She wasn't even here. And so I couldn't imagine having to fly home knowing my son had been killed. And now fast forward to figuring out what had gone wrong. So that night they decided to go to some college party by the University of Utah, and him and several friends. My son wasn't with him because he was moving the next day, and things like that stress him out, and he wanted to make sure he had everything packed, and he has a girlfriend, and so they didn't go out. And it turns out he was walking along, and he has an Audi, and another kid and his friend, apparently, I don't know if he pulled up, but they were joking around, or not joking, harassing each other, saying, my car's faster than your car. This ego, they're 20 years old. The kid that shot him was 24, so he was older. But my boys, Usman, he was 20. So they're doing what guys do. They talk about, my car's faster than your car. The kid got out of the car. There was some sort of fight that happened. And that kid had brought a loaded gun, pulled out his loaded gun and shot it in the air. And everyone scattered. That was outside the party, including Usman. And as he was running away, the other friend chased after him because who knows what comments that were said, and tackled him, and there was a fight that ensued. And as Usman was laying on the ground in the middle of the street, the other guy, the guy that brought the gun, decided to unload his gun on this innocent boy. And the police were called, the ambulance, he was taken away. My son was called, and so he didn't bother to come and tell me that he was leaving, and he was told Usman was shot. He went to the party. Of course, the friends are hysterical, upset, devastated. They go to the ER, and they waited for 7 hours in the ER because, of course, the family needs to be notified first. His mom was out of the country, and when they got a hold of the family, then I think they were told, devastated, couldn't believe it, not my friend. And so therefore they had to go to my former spouse's, his dad's house to get the U-Haul because the sister said, you've got to put Usman's bedroom back together before our mom gets home, because they didn't want her to see it moved out because he was never really moving out. They took the U-Haul and they put his room back together. He is Muslim, part of the Muslim culture, which I'm learning. They bury their dead after 3 days. So we've gone to the funeral now. It was a very interesting experience. And then that was on Tuesday, and then Wednesday happened with Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. Broad daylight in front of thousands of students. And I just have to wonder what is going on. And my thoughts are, because Usman's murder was over whose car's faster than whose car. This ego, how dare you say your car's faster? I don't know. It's senseless. It doesn't make sense. And I think these kids, they aren't learning how to process their emotions. I think we've got to have this conversation. We are raising kids that are searching, that are trying to find answers to things in really dangerous ways. And I think as their parents, we need to do better. We have to heal in our stuff so that our kids can have permission to be sad or mad or angry or whatever they're feeling. They have an outlet so they don't have to turn to violence. It's so fascinating because experiencing betrayal and having to hear this news from my former husband, it was like I was hearing the shock of hearing your son's best friend was murdered was very similar to the shock that I felt every time I heard my husband's having an affair. I felt the shock, the questioning, the rumination, the nightmares, the blaming. The person that did this, he brought a loaded gun to a party. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know much about him. He did turn himself in, not out of the goodness of his heart, I don't think, but because he was caught. There was so much video taken at this party, sadly, just like with Charlie Kirk, a lot of video. Like, it's really hard to run away from that. He will be in jail for prison for the rest of his life for having some 20-year-old kid mouth off to him about his car was better than their car, whatever the reason was. I just want us to consider what we can do better in our lives, in our own families, to help our kids, to be an example to them, especially young adults. They don't necessarily listen, but they watch, they see us, what we're doing and not doing, how we react, how we show forth love or hate. And I hope, for me, I think love is always the answer. Love and kindness and not holding bitterness and hate, because that will destroy you. Something is going on with our kids. My worst nightmare happened not to my child, but to someone that I felt like was another son. I considered him part of our family. He was a part of our home. I just want us to consider and maybe have a conversation. And I know people have lots of thoughts, and I'm not even anti-gun because I don't think the guns are the problem personally. I think it's the lack of emotional stability, ability to feel our emotions, the numbing out, the immaturity of people, the thought that we are better than other people. We're not, there's a hierarchy. We are all, in my mind, God's children. We are all brothers and sisters. We need to start treating each other. And I know some families, like this is how they treat their brothers and sisters, but not in my family. My family, we love, we care about each other, we serve each other. And that's what I want my family and our family to look like. And so for me, for the past week, I've just had to step back and just be sad. This is sad. And I don't like it. And I wish we could go back in time and think, don't go to that party, Usman. Don't go. But that's not the case. And so now we have to heal. We heal in community. We heal by talking about it. I think, if anything, just figure out how can you be a little kinder? How can you have a bit more compassion for those that you don't like or that disagree with you or that think differently than you? What inside of you is showing up the way that you're showing up? And do you like that? Do you want to change that? I think betrayal, if you're watching this, you probably know me from betrayal. It changes you. And you can go one of two ways. You can become full of bitter and hate and anger, or you can heal so you can feel love again and trust and confident and know that it wasn't your fault. It's not about you. It was about something going on for them. And so healing, I think, is so important, and it's totally possible. And we've just got to find a way to do it and help these kids because our kids need us. Having to tell my two other kids that live with me that are also really close, it was awful. And I don't want to have to tell them this anymore. I don't want to have to let them know that one of their friends, someone that they know, was murdered. I can't even think how this is part of my story, but it is. And I don't want to back away from it because I want us to figure out a way how we can do better, how we can help these kids. They deserve stronger parents. They deserve more emotionally available parents to talk to be resilient. The thing I've noticed about myself is that I do hard things every day, and I have been so proud of myself of how I've been able to sit in my sad and still show up for others and still show up for me. And that's what healing looks like. Healing is possible. I want you to know that. And I know we can't change the world, but we can change us and how we interact with others and who we are. And I just think it's something we need to maybe have more conversations about. And I don't want this to be part of my life. I don't want this to be part of my story anymore. I don't know if it will. I know I never thought it was, and now it is. I just wanted to share this and hope that you know that it is possible to heal and you can get through hard things, and just give your kids a hug. Tell them you love them.